Hey there, stories. I am titling this particular segment today, the What's She Up To Now, as I transition from the real business world of brick and mortar corporate world and jobs to the online business world and try to duplicate the success I had in the offline world on the online world and help other businesses do the same. I'm sharing the journey of how I'm doing that and how I'm going about that because it is a very different world. Today is day 304 of me documenting my journey. I've actually been on this journey a little longer than that. I started learning about the online world after I divested myself of my business throughout my divorce, yada, yada, yada. Long story, but that's not what the story is about today. And how I'm doing that. I started that in, I want to say February of 2017. I guess January of 2017, I really started to look in earnest for what was the next thing I'm going to do. And I knew I wanted to do something. I mean, I'm kind of old, but I'm not old enough to just roll up and die and say I'm done. So I knew I had to find something else to do in some way to contribute to the world. So I started researching and I stumbled upon the ClickFunnels organization. And I got involved in that full force, became a certified partner, and I've been building my own things online ever since. And earlier this year, I decided that, excuse me, I needed to document the journey and share with other people what I'm going through and how I'm doing it, because the gurus and everyone, and including ClickFunnels, will have us believe that it's so easy. You just, get your phone and you start making millions of dollars because you've got a funnel. Well, nobody knows what any of that means, and it doesn't matter. But one of the things that they have taught me that I've learned is really, really important, and I'm terrible at, so I'm going to start practicing, is the whole topic of stories and how important it is that we share what it is we want to share with people, and we wrap that up in a story, because people don't remember things that we tell them unless we give them context. Stories provide value and context to the information that we're trying to share with other people. So today I began, and I started off and on in the past, but I'm not very good at it yet, sharing my story and sharing stories of things and experiences that have happened in my past. I think I've talked to you all about having a stories inventory, having a little notebook where you just write down different experiences and things that you've had and things that you can tell stories about. So I've brainstormed those lists about stories, but I forget to tell them. Every time I talk about a topic, I should be able to pull a story out and demonstrate and explain that particular topic, but I forget to. So I need to get my little handy dandy notebook and have it with me all the time. So when I'm talking about something, I know, oh, I should tell this story about this, because that will really help people understand and retain that lesson. So today I began on my Supersize Business page talking about my Epiphany Bridge story, my story of why it is that I do what I'm doing. And my intention was to share my story about why I'm doing this Women's Summit. And that turned into, no, I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to practice sharing my origin story. Now, I'm old. I'm 58 years old. I've done a lot of stuff. So where do you decide what your origin story is, and where do you start your origin story? Russell Brunson, if you're familiar with him, talks about his potato gun story. He's been telling his potato gun origin story for 15 years. Now, Russell did a whole lot of other things besides his potato gun thing online, but that is the story that he tells over and over and over again because it gets the best reception. It's one that people can relate to and understand. So as I'm thinking about what is my origin story? Where do I start in my history to tell my story that people can relate to and understand? And so I'm working through that and trying to decide that. But I decided my origin story today, the one I started sharing, is about me. I just took me 10 years ago and I said, okay, who was I as a woman business owner? Who was I as a person? Who was I 10 years ago? And what was my life like versus what it's like now? Now I'm sitting here in hot rollers, so you're probably like, holy buckets, what happened? Was that a good or a bad transformation? But I decided I would break my original origin story based on that down, and I would start back 10 years ago and talk about my backstory. Where was I 10 years ago? What was my life like? And I'm practicing trying to add more detail and emotions to that and figure out, well, what do people want to know? How do I reach them where they are now to share my story with them? So I did there's an Epiphany Bridge script that Russell Brunson shares in his book, Expert Secrets, which is incredible. And it's a great storytelling format. It's the storytelling format that most great movies, most good movies and good books and good articles and good stories about anything, any length, are based on this 8-stage or 8-step process. And there's a whole lot of detail to it, which I'm not going to go into. I want to just practice actually doing it and sharing my example. So I did the first 2 steps of that, the backstory and the desires. What did I want to do back then? What was my life like back then? What was my situation? And I need to add more emotion and describe that in more detail. But I described it. It's my first time, so I'm practicing. And then what did I want? Why was I doing what I was doing back then? What were my desires, both internal and external? What did I want to achieve in the world? And then what did I want to achieve back then in me? Well, I wanted to, create these awesome businesses that would provide enough money to take care of my family in the way I thought they should be taken care of so we could live the lifestyle we wanted. And, internally, I'm sure like everybody else, I just wanted to be happy and feel loved. And I didn't even talk about that today on my story, but bottom line, internally, that's what we all want. We want to be happy. We want to be enjoying our life. We want to feel like we're making a difference, and we want to feel loved. And I would say back then, I wasn't doing any of those. I mean, I knew my family loved me. I knew my kids loved me. My businesses were in a lot of ways working. In some ways they weren't working. In all ways, it was really, really stressful. And I was doing things based on what I thought other people expected me to do, not at all listening to myself and what was good for me or what made me happy. And so then tomorrow I will talk about the wall that I hit, because I hit a very big wall. I hit the biggest wall you can possibly hit in my life and in that situation. And I want to make sure that nobody else has to ever hit that wall. And people will continue to hit that wall because they won't know that they don't have to. Like I didn't know I didn't have to. But it turns out it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's why I can sit here and talk to you in my rollers now. So I'm working on how do you tell your stories and how do you get more examples and more stories into what you're sharing with people? Because as human beings, I can't remember who said this the other day, but they said our lives are one never-ending story. From the day we're born to the day we die, that is our story. And in our head and in our lives, there's this constant narration going on and us experiencing on a physical and emotional, spiritual, all different levels, what we experience in our life. And that is all writing our story. It's all a story. And that's part of why people can relate to and understand stories, because we're all in the middle of one. So when I share an example from my life, a story from my life, you automatically see yourself in that story, whether we're at all alike or not. You still see similarities, because as human beings, we all have some similarities. We all have a lot of differences. We're all 100% unique snowflakes, but we also have a lot of human tendencies and human things that just make us tick. And that's why and how humans work and think and grow. So I'm going to spend the next several days working on and practicing stories. I had mapped out that my Epiphany Bridge story would be one day on my brainstorm plan of topics for my supersized business share every day. And I already changed my mind on that today. And instead of being one day with my Epiphany Bridge, and instead of even doing the Epiphany Bridge story I was going to talk about, which was why the Women's Summit, which will be my next one, I'm probably going to break this down into 5 days. 4 days. I'll probably break it down into 4 days. I'll do 2 parts of the framework every day and share that. And that will allow me the opportunity to practice my story. And then as I really hone in on, okay, which origin story? What's my origin story? Where do I start in my story of sharing with people? And as much as I'm resisting it, I keep coming back to starting with my sudden cardiac arrest. Because as much as I'm resisting sharing that story, I think that story is really, if I look back in my life, that is the story that has defined the massive change in direction that my life has taken. And it's who I am today. Now, I was always myself, of course, but 10 years ago, I was not being myself. I was being who I thought the world thought I should be. I was being who I thought my husband thought I should be. I was being the mom I thought my kids thought I should be. I was being the daughter, the daughter-in-law, the sister, the cousin, the friend, the business owner that I thought the world thought I should be. I wasn't being who I am. And now today, man, I am totally who I am. Obviously, or I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you in curlers. And I would say probably the greatest lesson that I've learned over my entire life in my 58 years is that you just have to be yourself. You 100% authentically have to be yourself. Listen to yourself. Do what makes you feel good. And because if you want to do something and you feel any kind of an inkling of, yes, I should do that, that's right for me, then we always know what to do. We just don't let ourselves believe that we know what to do. So that's what I will be chatting about over the next couple of days, sharing stories and how it's working and how scary it is to share these stories, because it's scary to share our stories. It's actually really, it's harder to be our authentic selves. It's harder to be who we really are and be vulnerable and tell people and show people who we really are than it is to live our life with those masks on. In corporate America, I didn't have any trouble rolling through corporate America and doing an awesome job in whatever organization I was in or whatever organization I worked for and interacted with, because I knew exactly what and how I needed to perform, who I needed to show up as, what I needed to be, how I needed to act, what I needed to wear, what I needed to say, when I needed to say it to be successful in corporate America. That came really, really easy for me, putting on that version of myself and being that professional person came super easy for me. And it's a lot harder to actually just be who I am. It's a lot more fun and a lot more rewarding, and I'm a lot happier. But I will admit, I'll be the first to admit, it's a lot harder to show the world who you really are. Because when you get a hater, or when you get somebody judging you because you're in your pajamas and rollers and sending you a message saying that you're uglier than sin and you should be the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz laying under the house if they ever do a remake. When somebody sends you something like that, now that one just made me laugh. But when you first get people judging you, it hurts more because they're judging who you really are and you showing up as yourself, as your vulnerable self. And those haters hurt a little bit more than if somebody judges you when you're wearing your veils and you're wearing your masks and you're showing up in corporate America. I never had any trouble taking feedback or getting people's opinions or haters in corporate America because I had that mask on. I had that shield of protection of me being and just showing the world part of me. But when you become more vulnerable and you show the world who you really are and you're actually being your authentic self, number one, you learn that people show you who they are by their behavior. They don't show you who you are. So haters are hilarious to me now because they're just showing me and the rest of the world who they are. It doesn't bother me one bit that someone doesn't like me. It doesn't bother me one bit anymore. And maybe that comes with age or experience, but I'm sure as a little girl and as a young adult and definitely as a teenager and a college age person in my young adult years, I was devastated if someone didn't like me. And I, of course, like everybody else, wanted everybody to like me. Everybody wants to be the popular one and have a lot of friends and a lot of people that love them. And it was, I'm sure, very much more important to me back then than it is now. Now, I'm like, hey, I'm here for the people that like me and get it. I'm not here for the people that don't. And me being my authentic self, me being me who I really am, allows me to filter out the people that I don't want to interact with, the people that aren't like me, that can't relate to me, that don't get me. And that's a lot less stressful once you get through that initial phase of dealing with the people that are haters and realizing that you being you is going to always, and it did anyway, we just didn't realize it. We always have had people that judge us and people that hate us and people that love us. We all always have. We just didn't know it. And you being yourself, me being myself, allows me to filter out those people that aren't for me and that I'm not for, so that they don't come into my world. And so my world's a lot happier, better place because only people that get it and only people that I should be interacting with, I interact with these days. And that in and of itself is a lot less stressful and a lot more fun because it's a lot less stressful and a lot more fun. That's it. Enough rambling for today. I have got a super huge busy day today, so I'm going to get to it. I wish you a fantastic day, and of course, I will be with you tomorrow.